The paper is thick, premium linen stock like it's supposed to soften the blow. Like elegance makes betrayal easier to swallow. You pick it up off the floor beside the tree, where it's been placed intentionally crooked half under the glitter-wrapped box of "To My Beautiful Wife." The handwriting is his, still trying to control the narrative even in this. The envelope is heavy, heavier than it should be. Maybe that's what truth weighs like when it's finally signed in black ink and sealed by someone who believes they've won. You glance toward the kitchen, where the smell of cinnamon rolls clings to the air like false comfort. He's standing at the counter pouring coffee with a casual flair, like it's any other morning. But his eyes are waiting. He doesn't say Merry Christmas. He doesn't ask if you like the scent of the candle he got you. He just waits for you to open the envelope. So you do. The click of your nail against the paper's flap echoes louder than it should. You pull out the neatly typed document. No note, no explanation. Just your name, his name, and the cold suggestion that everything sacred can be processed, filed, and dissolved. He's still looking at you. That awful flicker in his expression, that hopeful anticipation. He's betting on the tears. He's betting on the broken gasp that crumpled to the ground. You know this look. It's the same one he wore during your first fight, the one where he shouted just loud enough for the neighbors. The look that says, "Let's see what she's made of." But today you're not made of glass. You put the envelope down gently on the table, fold it in half, then in half again. Not to destroy it, just to make space. Your voice is steady when you say, "Open yours." He blinks. The smugness falters for half a second. You've never matched his games before, but you reach under the tree past the decoy gifts and retrieve a smaller package wrapped in navy paper gold ribbon, the kind of wrapping you used to reserve for anniversaries that mattered. You hand it to him. He raises an eyebrow. "You still got me something." You smile not kindly. It's a tradition, isn't it? He opens it slowly, trying to regain footing. The box is black velvet, hinged, silent. When he flips the lid open, confusion replaces arrogance. A key. Not to the house, not to his car, but one he recognizes. It's the old key to the villa, the one in Santorini, your shared dream, the one you couldn't afford to renovate last year, so he let it go. Except you didn't. You bought it, quietly, legally, completely in your name. He stares at the key like it betrayed him too. Why he finally asked the word scraping past pride. You walk past him toward the window. Outside, the snow is falling in silent waves. A white December, rare, pure. I just thought you say without turning, it should be somewhere peaceful when this part of my life dies. You hear the breath he doesn't take. You imagine the script unraveling in his mind, the one where you collapse into a mess of mascara and memories, the one where he gets to play comforter and executioner in one scene. You didn't read from his script. You wrote your own. He puts the key down slowly like it might burn him. You don't offer more. Let him sit in the silence, in the weight of a morning he thought he controlled. There are still cinnamon rolls in the oven, the ones you made knowing you wouldn't stay to eat them. Because some rituals deserve a farewell, and some men deserve to unwrap exactly what they gave. He doesn't say anything right away, just keeps looking at the key like it holds a riddle he can't solve. You watch him standing there in his favorite robe, the one you bought him last Christmas when things still felt fixable. You almost laugh at how domestic he looks, like this is just another morning, and not the slow-motion collapse of the world he tried to build over you. He finally speaks, voice low. "You're really doing this?" You tilt your head, mock thoughtful. "No, you did this. I just wrapped it nicely." You walk over and pick up the divorce envelope again this time, folding it with precision, corner to corner. Then you slide it back into its little cocoon and place it delicately on the mantel next to the photos of holidays. Past trips you paid for, gifts you planned, smiles you forced. He's watching you now less like a man in control and more like a gambler who just realized he's all in with a busted hand. He reaches for his coffee, trying to recenter. You see the slight shake in his fingers as he lifts the mug. "Why the villa?" he asks. You take your time. Sip from your own cup. It's lukewarm now, but you savor it. Because you told me I was stupid to keep dreaming about it. Said it was a waste of money and time. But funny thing, sometimes the things we dream about, they're not stupid. They're sacred. He sets his mug down too hard. It clinks sharply, a microburst of frustration. You look at him, really look. The lines on his forehead are deeper than they used to be. There's less charm, now more calculation. You think about all the times he dismissed your concerns with a wave of his hand. The way he loved to say you're overreacting, like your feelings were background noise in a story where only his mattered. But here's the twist: you've had time. Time to feel everything. Time to study him like a mirror you stopped fogging with your breath. Time to see every little moment where the love slipped out and manipulation slipped in. He thinks this morning is your beginning of grief. He doesn't know that you already buried the marriage quietly months ago and built a new door in its place. He clears his throat. So what now? You keep the villa, move there. You smile again. I already booked the flights. New Year's Eve. One way. The look on his face is something between disbelief and something else, panic, maybe. It's subtle, but it's there. Because now the power has shifted. You're not the one trying to hold on. And he knows it. You walk past him, trailing your fingertips along the wall as you head to the hallway closet. From the shelf, you pull a small box, his name printed neatly on top. You return and set it in front of him on the kitchen counter. Another gift. What's this? You nod toward it. Everything you came here with, every receipt, every personal file, every tie your mother gave you that you never wore. He opens the box slowly. Inside, folded with embarrassing precision, are the little fragments of his old life, his high school yearbook, the cufflinks he bragged about but never used. And on top, like a cherry on a melted sundae, the digital password reset instructions for the shared accounts you just dissolved. He looks up. You emptied them. You nod once, legally, logically, lovingly. He laughs once, a short breath of disbelief. You're cold. No, you reply. I was warm for too long. I kept burning for someone who didn't bring matches. Silence again, the kind that sticks. You walk to the door and crack it open. The cold air rushes in, sharp and real. Where are you going? He asks. You turn back. Brunch with people who don't pretend I'm disposable. That lands harder than you expect. For a moment, he looks like he might say something heartfelt, might try to rewind. But you've seen enough bad movies to know the speech never matches the damage. So you walk out, leaving the smell of cinnamon and the weight of silence behind. You step into the snow, breathing in the clean air. Each flake feels like permission. Permission to be done. The flight confirmation sits at the top of your inbox. You reread it from time to time, not because you don't believe it's real, but because something about seeing the word departure feels sacred. Like a spell cast in plain Helvetica. Santorini. You remember when it was just a postcard? Tacked to your old vision board next to promises of quiet, windblown cliffs and soft white walls. He once said it was a fantasy for bored wives. Funny considering how many nights he left you alone on the couch with nothing but fantasies to keep you company. The villa had been his idea first, back when he still thought making promises made him charming. You remember the way he talked about waking up to ocean light, sipping wine at sunset, laughing about things that weren't cruel. For a while, you clung to that vision like it was more real than him. But visions evolve. You first looked into the sale when you were still wearing your wedding ring. Quietly, secretly, like it was an affair, but the kind that gave you back to yourself. You'd notice the property listing come back on the market quietly, unceremoniously, like fate whispering. He dismissed it again when you brought it up. We're not 25 anymore, he said. We need to be smarter with money. By we, of course, he meant you, because he still bought watches like candy and leased sports cars for meetings that didn't need impressing. So you sold a few things, cut back on the things he never noticed missing. A designer handbag here. That ring he never asked why you stopped wearing. You transferred funds into a quiet trust, called the agent directly. And 3 months later, it was yours. You didn't tell anyone, not even your sister. You just held it in your pocket like a warm secret. Because when everything else felt temporary, this felt permanent. A place, a choice, a win. You remember the first time you stood on the villa balcony. The walls were chipped and the plumbing still groaned like an old man in pain, but the air. Oh, the air. It didn't ask you to perform. It didn't ask for smiles or makeup or small talk. It just let you be. You sat there for an hour with nothing but a notebook and a bottle of water staring at the blue that stretched beyond anything a screen could capture. It didn't feel like escape. It felt like arrival. Back home, you smiled when he asked why you were gone for 2 weeks. A retreat, you said, yoga. He didn't ask questions. He was too busy planning some startup meeting with a woman who laughed too hard at his jokes. Now, standing in your hallway with the luggage already packed, you pull open the bottom drawer of your desk. Inside the deed, your name, no hyphen, no joint ownership. You wonder if he's figured it out yet. Back when you bought the villa, you replaced the locks and upgraded the alarm system. Because you knew the kind of man he was, the kind who might show up later and claim things that were never his. You think about that key you gave him this morning, that symbolic relic of a dream he no longer owns. It's not even for the main entrance. It's to the garden gate, the rusted one you've never used. A little poetic, isn't it? You zip your suitcase shut and hear your phone buzz. A message from him. We need to talk. You've made your point. Call me. You don't even open it. Instead, you look around your apartment, your place now, since the house was too full of ghosts and echoing arguments. You light a candle, lavender, clean and simple. You let the scent drift. On the wall hangs the photo you took at the villa, the sea, the sun slanting across ancient stone. But what you love most is that you're not in it, just the view. Just peace. No proof of your presence except the fact that the moment was captured at all. You sit for a minute and let the quiet hum. You can almost hear the wind off the cliffs again, the laughter of the cafe owner who insisted you try her stuffed grape leaves, the soft knock of a stranger who said, "Welcome home," without needing to know your story. You wonder what he's doing right now? If he's staring at the key again? If he's searching the villa's address online and realizing what he lost? You hope he does. But more than that, you hope he understands that this was never about revenge. This was about remembering who you are and never forgetting again. You don't hear from him again until 2 days later, December 27th, 9th, 12 a.m. The notification pings just as you're confirming your villa's final cleaning service and choosing between 2 vintage rugs for the upstairs reading nook. His name pops up on your phone screen, a ghost dragging chains. Tried to book a hotel? Card declined. Something wrong with the joint account. You stare at the message for a moment long enough for it to lose all power. Then you set the phone down and keep sipping your tea. There's nothing wrong with the account. Not now that it no longer exists. You remember the week after he moved out, before the divorce papers, before the theatrics, when you visited the bank. The manager was polite, sympathetic even. She looked at the activity logs and said something like, "Would you like to discuss your options privately?" Which is professional. Speak for your husband's been draining funds behind your back. And in that moment, something inside you clicked. You weren't confused. You weren't even surprised. You were just done. You opened new accounts, quietly. You had your portion of the joint funds transferred based on legal allowances, froze the remaining shared lines, set up fraud alerts for all your personal cards. You didn't make a scene. You just made a move. Now he's discovering the aftermath in real time. Your own personal advent calendar of justice, one little surprise each day. You don't reply to his message. Let him stew. But 2 hours later, you get another. "My business card isn't working either. This is serious." You chuckle not unkindly, because it is serious to him. The man who once said money's not emotional. Don't treat it like a weapon. Now sounds like he's been shot in the wallet. You didn't touch his personal accounts. You wouldn't. You're not like him. But the business. That was joint. And when you stepped away from the company, you did so with your name still on the LLC filings, still holding 50%. He didn't notice. He just changed the locks on the office and thought that made him king. But you had your own locksmith and your own lawyer. And now the merchant accounts tied to the business name are frozen, pending a legal ownership review, which means he can't withdraw a cent until the paperwork sorts itself. It's all perfectly clean, no drama, just digital consequences for digital arrogance. You take another sip of tea and glance at your laptop screen where the rug options still wait for a decision. One is pale with indigo threads, the other a warm sunset gold. You pick the gold one because it feels like warmth returning. Your phone buzzes again. This time, it's not a message, it's a call. You let it ring out. He doesn't leave a voicemail. Instead, he texts, "Why are you doing this? I thought we could end things like adults." You stare at that sentence. Let it crawl through you, picking at old wounds. Like adults. Was it adult to send divorce papers on Christmas morning? To spend nights working late with women whose perfume clung to his collar like accusation? To make you feel small in every room where he needed to be big? He once said you were too emotional with money, that you made it mean things it didn't. But the irony is, it did mean something. It meant power, control, safety. And he knew it. That's why he kept it just out of reach, until you reached further. You type back just 3 words. "Merry late Christmas." Then you turn off your phone completely and toss it into the drawer with the villa deed. Outside, the day is overcast, the sky heavy with snow clouds. But inside, the air is warm, the candle is still burning, and you're wrapped in a silence that finally feels like your own. You sit down and start drafting your travel checklist. It's mundane adapter's passport charger, but each line feels like liberation. And somewhere across town, you hope he's opening his own kind of list. The kind that starts with, "Underestimated her," "Forgot who I married," "Forgot who I left." He always said you were too trusting. Back when things were good, or at least quieter, he liked to tease you for being too soft. You remembered how he'd grin when you let a neighbor borrow your garden tools, or when you helped his cousin find a job even after she ghosted you at your wedding. "You're sweet," he used to say with just enough smirk to make it sound like a warning. But what he never realized was that being sweet didn't make you stupid. You just gave people chances until they taught you better. Like his lawyer. It was subtle at first. Introduced casually at a dinner downtown. "He handles all my contracts," your husband said, like it was just good sense to bring the man along. You remember how he always made it seem like everything was about protecting you, while subtly tightening the circle around himself. At the time, you smiled, asked polite questions, paid attention to the way the lawyer ordered his steak medium rare, but left half of it untouched. People who waste expensive things tend to treat people the same way. What your husband didn't know, what he still doesn't know, is that 6 months after that dinner, you met the same lawyer again. Alone. You'd gone to his office quietly during a long lunch break you didn't tell your husband about. You weren't even thinking about divorce back then. Not really. But you were thinking about what it meant to have your name on things. Papers, businesses, mortgages, and yet feel like you owned nothing. The lawyer had listened, carefully, calmly. "I just want to understand what's mine," you told him. He didn't smile the way your husband did. He didn't laugh or minimize. He simply said, "Smart. Let's find out." That was the start of something. Not revenge, not even defiance, just information. The slow gathering of truths, like lining up dominoes not to knock down, but to finally see the whole pattern. He reviewed everything: the house, the company, the accounts, even the prenup you signed in a haze of honeymoon optimism. "This clause," he'd said, pointing to a paragraph on the 4th page, "is more flexible than it looks." You remember that moment, the way your breath caught not from fear, but from realization. You weren't trapped. You were unaware. That was the day you stopped being unaware. Over the next few months, you asked questions, quiet ones, strategic ones. You asked about trademarks and intellectual property, about financial restructuring, about how business ownership worked if one partner stepped away. You weren't planning to destroy him. You were planning to stop being invisible. So, when he finally served you divorce papers on Christmas, expecting silence, devastation, compliance, you didn't flinch. Because your lawyer had already prepared the countersuit, the financial documentation, the cease and desist letters for the brand name that technically he didn't own anymore. See, he loved the name. It had been his idea, he always said. But the paperwork told a different story. The brand was registered under your maiden name, filed through your trust, approved through your IP attorney months before he even knew you were being difficult. And your lawyer, the one he once introduced, the one he trusted to cover his tracks, had quietly stepped to your side the moment he realized who actually asked the right questions. Because people like him never ask the right ones. They just assume they have the answers. Your phone is back on now only because your lawyer said to expect some noise. He's not wrong. There are missed calls, messages, a voice note that starts with, "Look, I think this has all gotten out of hand." You delete it before it finishes. You open your laptop instead. A new email from your lawyer waits in your inbox. The subject line is clean executed documents, business dissolution, and brand ownership confirmation. It's done. He can't use the name anymore. Not on his website, not on invoices, not even on merch. If he tries, he gets sued. It won't ruin him, but it'll shake him. Because he built everything on performance, and now the stage has no name. You close the laptop slowly, let the silence stretch. You think back to that first dinner, the one where the lawyer cut his steak just so. You realize now he wasn't wasteful. He was waiting, watching, choosing who to bet on. And this time, he bet on the right one. You don't go digging for dirt. You never needed to. It piled itself in plain sight day after day, comment after comment. The late nights he stopped explaining, the texts turned face down on the table, the passwords that must have reset. You saw it all even when he thought you weren't watching. But you didn't explode. You collected. Not for revenge, not even for proof, just for clarity. The screenshots started small: one message from a coworker you weren't supposed to see, another from a hotel booking confirmation that didn't match his client dinner timeline. At first it felt like betrayal. Then it started to feel like pattern. And once you see the pattern, you can't unsee it. So, you made a folder, titled it something boring receipts, and tucked it into the cloud behind layers of innocuous budgeting spreadsheets and recipe PDFs. He never thought to check. He didn't even know where you stored things. Men like him rarely do. They think digital evidence is safe if they delete their history. You screenshotted, recorded calls when the gaslighting got creative, collected audio of him explaining why you're just paranoid and she's just a friend and you're lucky I put up with your moods. You knew your moods. You also knew he curated every argument like an Instagram grid, just messy enough to seem real, but never raw enough to reveal what actually broke beneath the surface. It wasn't the cheating, it was the rewriting. The way he'd say, "You're remembering it wrong," even when the text was right there. So you started keeping the text. The folder grew. You saved it to 2 hard drives, one encrypted, one locked in your sister's garage. You felt crazy at first, like a digital hoarder of your own heartbreak. But deep down, you knew there would come a time when someone would try to erase your story. And you weren't going to let that happen. The day the lawyer asked, "Do you have documentation?" you didn't hesitate. You sent him a zip file labeled "for review." He sent back a message 2 hours later: "We can work with this. Thank you for your patience." You didn't cry. You didn't feel vindicated either. Just clean, like someone had finally run clear water through a pipe you didn't know was clogged. Now, as you scroll through your email, you open another document. It's your deposition summary. Short, precise. The evidence curated not for drama, but for impact. Your favorite part: the transcript from a voicemail he left 2 months ago, right after that rooftop event, where he accidentally introduced his date to your mutual friends as his real partner. He hadn't known you were within earshot. He called later slurred and smug. "I just needed to look good tonight, okay? You always make things about you. Don't turn this into a thing." Seriously. "You know, I love you well, I did once." You were manageable back then. The line crackled. He hung up. You remember sitting on the stairs of your building that night, listening to that message 3 times, each word sanding something raw inside you. You didn't throw your phone, didn't scream. You just pressed save. Now that message is Exhibit D. It's funny in a way. He used to joke that you were too sensitive for this world, that you'd never survive corporate without him shielding you. But here you are, shieldless, alone, surviving just fine. You close the deposition file and lean back in your chair. Outside, a wind picks up, rattling the window, just enough to sound like applause. There's a knock at your door. It's your sister holding your favorite takeout and 2 bottles of wine. She doesn't ask what happened today. She doesn't need to. She just sets everything down, opens the containers, and pours you a glass. You clink silently, and for the first time in a long time, you take a bite of something that tastes like beginning. Not survival. Beginning. It wasn't just a business. It was your baby. You'd built it from your shared apartment kitchen table back when ambitions still felt romantic, and spreadsheets were a kind of love language. He brought the charisma, the pitch voice. You brought the logistics, the operations, the ideas that actually worked. He joked once that you were the engine and he was the shine. But engines don't forget, and engines can drive away. The name had come to you during a sleepless night, scribbled onto a napkin. He'd loved it, said it was catchy, clever, perfect. Ours, he called it. Ours until the investors came sniffing. Then it became his. You remember the shift, the way he started introducing himself as the founder, trimming your title down to something toothless. You weren't his co-CEO anymore. You were my wife, she helps out. And every time you corrected him, he'd laugh like you were being dramatic. I mean, come on, he'd say. It's not like you want to be in front of the camera anyway. He was right. You didn't want the spotlight. You just wanted the truth. So when things started to feel shaky, when the meetings got weird and the boardroom started to shrink, you went back to the name, the napkin, the early designs. And that's when you realized something delicious. You had created the name, designed the logo, paid the graphic designer directly from your personal account, filed the initial paperwork before he even knew what an LLC was. And you had proof. The lawyer confirmed it after 3 email threads and a thorough comb-through of your archives. Technically, he said in that voice lawyers use before dropping a hammer, the brand name is yours. Trademarked, filed, quietly protected under your maiden name, the one he told you to let go of because it was clunky. Turns out clunky names make great shields. When he tried to relaunch the site after the financial accounts were frozen, he found a cease and desist letter waiting in his inbox. The message was simple: stop using the name, or get sued. He called, of course, left a voicemail. This is petty. You're being impossible. You know this company is nothing without me. You didn't respond. You didn't need to. Instead, you updated the website yourself. Just a landing page, white background, black text. Temporarily closed due to internal restructuring. A new vision is coming. Your name at the bottom, not vindictive, just factual. The next day a friend texted, "Is this you now? I love it." You didn't answer. You just smiled. You'd forgotten how good it felt to be seen for the work, not for who you stood behind. The emails started rolling in soon after. Former clients, vendors, even old staff. Most of them hadn't even known you were out of the picture. They assumed you'd stepped back to start a family or take a break, the narratives he liked to spin when people asked. But now they knew. One of them, an old client you'd personally walked through a failed launch years ago, wrote something that stuck with you. "I always suspected you were the real architect. Good to see you taking the house back." Taking the house back. That's what it felt like. Not a war, not a heist. Just a quiet return to what was already yours. You still don't know what he's planning next. You assume he'll pivot, rebrand, start something new with a name that sounds hollow. Let him, because the real value wasn't in the name. It was in what it stood for. And what it stands for now is you. He always loved a dramatic entrance. The kind where he'd stroll into a room 15 minutes late, flash that grin, toss out a joke just loud enough to draw eyes. He didn't need a spotlight, he dragged one with him wherever he went. Which is why the Christmas party was perfect. You hadn't planned on going. Why would you? It was still his event, technically the company's final hurrah before the new year, now awkwardly shared between 2 legal signatures. But then, you got the invite. Addressed formally, no personalization. Like they weren't sure which side you stood on. So you RSVP'd yes. You didn't wear red or green or anything sequined. Just a simple black dress, clean lines, quiet elegance. The kind that doesn't beg for attention, but holds it anyway. Your sister came as your +1. She wore heels sharp enough to puncture ego. The ballroom was gold lit and crowded, every corner stuffed with networking smiles and cheap champagne. You kept to the edge at first near the windows, watching the city lights blink like they were in on something. And then he arrived. On brand, of course. Leather blazer, smug expression, arm draped around a woman you recognized instantly. Not from introductions, but from screenshots. Her laugh echoed too loud. Her hand lingered too long. She wore the necklace you designed, your design, one of a kind stolen from your old studio drawer sometime last spring. The room noticed. They always noticed him. What they didn't notice yet was what was about to happen. You let the moment breathe, waited until they passed close enough. She brushed your shoulder without knowing the scent of overpriced jasmine following behind. And then someone saw you. "Hey, oh my God, you're here." A colleague, one of the quiet ones. Her eyes lit up. "I wasn't sure if you'd come." "Wait, are you back?" You gave a small smile. "Not exactly." That's all it took. Like water cracking a frozen pond, whispers spread. People noticed. They did the math. Him on one side of the room, you on the other. The brand name still in limbo. The lawsuits. The necklace. The girlfriend. One of the junior partners looked visibly uncomfortable. She leaned into his ear, whispered something. He waved her off. Then too quickly he turned to look at you. You didn't look away. The tension was slow, like honey turning to ice. He started toward you, dragging her along like a man walking into a story he didn't write. "Didn't expect to see you here," he said, smiling like a dentist. You tilted your head. "Why not? I'm still technically part owner." She looked confused. She didn't know, not yet. He cleared his throat. "This is Andrea." You extended a hand, calm, poised. "We've met, indirectly." Her smile faltered, a flicker of understanding. You could see it in the way she glanced down at the necklace. "Oh," she said, "just that. Oh." And then came the moment, the mic drop. You reached into your clutch, pulled out a small envelope, handed it to her gently. "For you." She took it slowly, glancing at him, then back at you. Inside, a letter from your lawyer. Nothing hostile, just a polite, precise request to cease usage of stolen designs and to return any custom prototypes belonging to the original creator. Her face drained. He looked at her, then at the envelope, then back at you. "What the hell is this?" You shrugged, soft and slow. "Gift exchange." People were watching now. The murmurs had volume. A nearby exec raised an eyebrow. Someone else stifled a laugh. The mood had shifted. And he knew it. He'd brought you here as a ghost in his story. But you weren't the ghost. You were the author. He stepped forward. "This is pathetic. Are you seriously doing this here in public?" You leaned closer, just enough for only him to hear. "You chose the audience. I just gave them the ending." He didn't respond. Couldn't. Because what was there to say, really? You smiled, turned to Andrea. "Good luck." Then you walked away, leaving behind a necklace, a name, and a man learning that showmanship is only impressive when no one's watching the seams. You don't expect him to show up. It's been quiet for days after the party. Quieter than usual. No angry messages, no cryptic quotes posted to his story, no new girlfriend selfies. It's like the world held its breath and decided not to say his name anymore. Then on New Year's Eve morning, there's a knock. You already know it's him. You feel it before you hear it, some old lingering muscle memory trying to anticipate damage. But you're not the same woman who used to flinch at the sound of his car in the driveway. You open the door slowly. He's standing there with the forced calm hands in his jacket pockets, like he practiced this moment in a mirror and still couldn't quite get it right. "Can I come in?" You glance behind you at your sister's living room, your temporary base until your flight in 3 days. She's out for coffee. The house is quiet, warm, safe. You nod once. He steps in like he owns less of the air than he used to. You don't offer him a seat. He takes one anyway. I need to understand," he says, "how you did all this. Why you did all this." You tilt your head. "You sent me divorce papers on Christmas morning." He flinches a little but recovers. "Okay, but you made it a war." You say nothing. He leans forward. "You know I didn't expect it to get this ugly. I thought we could end it like adults." The same line again. You let the silence stretch this time. Let him sit in it. Finally, you ask, "Why now? Why are you here?" He rubs his face with both hands. For a moment, he doesn't look slick. He just looks tired. Because he says quietly, "I thought you'd cry. I thought you'd fall apart. That's what people do when they lose everything." You nod slowly. "That's the thing. I didn't lose anything." His eyes lift. You continue, "I left things. Big difference." He exhales sharply. "So, what you're happy now is that it—" You consider the question. Not because you don't know the answer, but because it deserves a moment. "I'm not angry anymore," you say, "and I think that's even better." He doesn't like that. You see it in his jaw, the way it tightens at the idea that you found peace without his apology. He leans back. "I thought I was doing you a favor, ending things cleanly." You laugh, not unkindly. "No one gets clean endings. We just get honest ones." The moment stretches again. Something inside him crumbles, even if just a little. His shoulders soften. "I didn't know you were that strong," he admits. "No, you say soft but firm. You just hoped I wasn't." There's nothing left to say after that. He looks around the room like it might reveal something he missed, like strength lives in the furniture or the light. But it doesn't. It lives in you, in the quiet, decisive choices, in the steady hand that wrapped the key, packed the suitcase, signed the papers. He stands slowly. "I guess this is goodbye." You nod. "It's been goodbye. This is just the echo." He hesitates in the doorway. You don't move to hug him. You don't even move to hold the door. He opens it himself. "Take care," he says. You don't reply. You close the door behind him softly, not like a slam, not like punctuation, just a breath. And in the silence that follows, you feel something shift, subtle but unmistakable. Not closure, not victory, freedom. You don't watch him leave. You don't check the window. You don't open social media to see if he posted some melodramatic quote about some people not being who they seemed. You don't rehearse the conversation in your head or rewrite your lines with better comebacks. You've already said what needed saying without raising your voice, without flinching, without begging to be understood. That was the real gift. Not the villa, not the legal wins, not even the moment at the party where you watched his ego crack like glass under candlelight. It was this, the calm. Because it turns out the closure isn't loud. It's not a door slamming or a dramatic goodbye or a final email sent at 3 a.m. Closure is when you no longer need to reopen the file. And right now you feel done. Completely, quietly, irrevocably done. Your sister returns with coffee. She doesn't ask questions, just hands you a latte with your name spelled right on the cup, like the universe wanted to affirm something small but true. You spend the afternoon going over your villa checklist, confirming the cleaning crew booking a grocery delivery for your arrival, double-checking that your favorite notebooks made it into the suitcase. You don't feel like you're fleeing anymore. You're preparing, starting, opening a new chapter, not slamming shut an old one. At one point, you catch your reflection in the hallway mirror, still in pajamas, hair in a bun, no makeup, warm socks, and you don't flinch. You look like someone you can trust. The next morning, the final transfer clears. Your portion of the company buyout hits your account. The sum is more than you expected, not just in money, but in meaning. He called it war, but it wasn't. It was reclamation. You take a long walk that afternoon. No headphones, no distractions. Just you and your thoughts, the cold air biting gently at your cheeks, the world moving like it always has. You pass a couple arguing softly outside a bakery, a man juggling 3 lattes, a little girl skipping ahead of her dad. You don't feel separate from them. You just feel still, present, unburdened. You think about how for years you made yourself smaller, softer, easier to be around. You swallowed feelings like sharp stones and smiled through the bleeding. No, you're not swallowing anything. You're tasting your life again. That night, you sit with your sister and watch a movie you've both seen a dozen times. You laugh at the same lines. You cry at the ending anyway. No one reaches for your hand out of obligation. No one criticizes your snack choices. No one acts like your joy has a volume limit. You fall asleep on the couch, and for the first time in what feels like forever, you dream without anxiety. No chasing, no failing, no searching for something you lost. Just water, blue endless still. You wake up to the sun warming your cheek and the sound of your suitcase wheels clicking gently across the floor as your sister helps bring it to the door. "It's time," she says, smiling. You nod, it is. As the taxi pulls up and your passport slides into your jacket pocket, you feel no fear. Just flight. Not escape, not revenge. Just motion, just peace. Just you. The plane lifts slowly, gently, like the sky isn't in any hurry to take you. The clouds spread out beneath you like soft fields of cotton, and for the first time in a long time, you feel weightless in all the right ways. Not lost, just unburdened. You close your eyes. There are no more arguments echoing in your chest. No more late-night self-doubt looping through your head like a bad commercial. No more contorting yourself into the shape of someone else's comfort. Just breath, just stillness, just a window seat facing east where light always begins. The villa is waiting. You can already feel the hush of its rooms, the quiet strength in its old stone walls. The sea will greet you like an old friend. No judgment, no expectations, just the constant rhythm of something that has never needed to prove itself. You won't rush to unpack. You'll open the windows, let the air in, let the silence speak. And in that silence, you'll remember. You never needed to be loud to be powerful. You never needed anyone else's permission to begin again. You were never broken, only buried. Now everything blooms, softly, quietly, without apology. And if you're still carrying some weight, some questions, some ghosts, that's okay too. Healing isn't a race, it's a return. A return to your voice, to your peace, to the life that's always been waiting on the other side of goodbye. And if you're still awake, that's okay too. Some nights just lying still and breathing softly is enough to return home to yourself.